Good morning, everybody. This is wow, it's dark. Let's get a light on. Good morning, everybody. This is Brian coming to you from Sitch Radio in Irvine, California, a full service podcast production studio dedicated to help you tell your story. September. I can't believe it is September already. There is just, where's the year gone? We've produced hundreds of episodes this year so far. We've seen customers come. We've seen some shows go to hiatus. That's just the way the ball bounces sometimes. But a couple of announcements. Number one, this show is going to become a monthly show and monthly show only. It will be on the first Friday of the month. And we're kind of cutting back here so we can put a little more time into the Podcast That 2.0 show, which you can also find here on Bullhorn and all your favorite podcast players. And the audio will even be published to the Sitch Radio Substack newsletter. So if you do not subscribe, hit that link in the show notes below and check out our newsletter. The Podcast That 2.0 podcast goes out there, and we do a monthly newsletter, kind of cherry picking what's going on in and around podcasting or national stories, global stories that may affect you and your show. So check it out, and you can subscribe for free. If you like what we're doing, you can become a paid subscriber and get a perk or two along the way. So the first thing I want to talk about today is our next meetup. It will be on the 20th of this month. Doors open at 6. The event starts at 6:30. It is going to be moi talking about Web3, RSS 2.0, and what that does for the podcasting community. I found an interesting number. There are less than 5,000 shows that have actually claimed their show on the Lightning Network. So 5,000 out of 5 million, very small percentage. And, we're trying to get the word out that if you are a podcaster, go to fountain.fm, download the app, claim your show. And people that use Fountain understand the value for value proposition that's being made with RSS 2.0. And they are actually streaming Satoshis to us for the work we're doing and other shows, which is pretty cool. And you can also send boostograms with some, a number of sats that you set. There's some pretty cool features there to give back to the creators you enjoy watching and interacting with. So we're going to discuss that and so much more. Again, that's September 20th here at Sitch Radio. You can find the event on MeetUp or go to sitchradio.com. In the main menu, click events, and you will get all the awesome information there. Again, networking 6 to 6:30. Discussion starts at 6:30 and will run about an hour, and we will have time for a Q&A session, which is cool. So if you're a podcaster and or podcast listener and want to share your podfession, check out Podfessions on Twitter. And fun little page Linz and I have launched to support the feeddrops.com effort and the Feed Drops podcast. And it's kind of funny. Things pop into my mind and I go, share it. You can find a form to fill out to get your podfession posted by Podfessions at feeddrops.com. And we're just having a little fun with podcasting and podcast confessions. Twitter. So, a little confused. We've grown up with podcasts up here in a podcast player. You have control over what you subscribe to, what you follow, what you see, all that good stuff. Well, Twitter is including podcasts, so they say, in the Twitter app. There's a little icon here in the US down at the bottom of the phone. It looks like a microphone, but you really have no control over what you see, nor can you submit your RSS to it. So they algorithmically are showing you shows that people listen to, that you follow, etc., and so forth. So early stages. We'll see how this shakes out. However, if you're looking for something to do, hit the podcast icon on the Twitter app and check out what they've got going on over there. Kind of along the same lines with YouTube, there's no way to submit your RSS to YouTube. And when I go to youtube.com/podcasts, I don't really see podcasts. No control again over what you see, what you don't see. But who knows? Hit it up. Maybe you'll find a podcast, and that's not produced by a national media organization, and find something new to listen to. Who knows? But we'll see how these apps shape out. I was told from a friend that went to Podcast Movement that YouTube does not plan on developing their youtube.com/podcast out any further this year. More changes to come next. We'll see. The next big story, I often talk to my podcast hosts about copyright and fair use and what you can use and shouldn't use in your podcast and or in social posts, i.e. images, to promote your podcast. But Oprah Winfrey is suing a podcast, and it's a fan podcast about Oprah. This story came to me from Hot Pod News, and the show is entitled Oprah Demics, and she's saying it's infringing on the company's trademarks and is misleading. But there's been a lot of fan podcasts out there. Walker Stalkers comes to mind, and it's a category I've often looked at. I'm just kind of late to the game. When I discover a TV show, it's usually in season 2. So, I'm kind of a poor example of a guy that should start a fan podcast. However, using Oprah name in the title, I guess, is their biggest complaint. But it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on that as this litigation continues. PodSite's Q3 2022 benchmark report is out. I don't know if you're anything like me. I enjoy looking at analytics. PodSites produces it. Obviously, Edison Research is the big one, in my opinion, that I pay attention to every time they drop a new report. But it's interesting to see some of the numbers that are happening. And this report kind of focuses on the ad rev generated through PodSites. So if you're interested in that, there is a link in the newsletter as well. And Apple launched a social media post generator. So you can go to podcasters.apple.com and check it out, or just Google Apple podcast social post generator, I guess, and it might pop up. It's kind of a convoluted URL. There is a link in the newsletter to it, but you can search for the name of a show you like or maybe dislike. I wouldn't do it for a show I disliked, because you're just going to bring attention to the show. And they will generate some art that you can download, and it generates a link, obviously, to that show and or episode on Apple. So you can even, filter down into an exact episode and generate art to promote an episode. I played with it a little bit. Sometimes it works. Sometimes not all the art was generated. You can download it in a zip file. You unzip it. Now you have your 3 pieces of art, and, do with as you may. But kind of a cool tool to help you promote your show and Apple and your show on Apple. There is a link, or a website, I should say. The link is in the newsletter, and it is PODlink. And you can go there and search for your podcast, and it generates a page with multiple podcast player icons on it. And you click and you go to that show on that platform. And I've noticed that some podcasts now aren't generating a website. What they're doing is creating a Linktree account, and they're including PodLink in that Linktree as an option to subscribe to the show. And I thought it was kind of a cool workaround and a way to promote your podcast on the cheap. And I wanted to include it because I have used Pod.link, and I do believe I link to Pod.link my page on a few of my link trees. However, the majority of my shows have a standalone website to, support the efforts of that show, but kind of a cool option. And again, you can take a peek at that. So I just finished reading Pitch Anything, and it is written by Oren Klaff, and the subtitle is An Innovative Method for Presenting, Persuading, and Winning the Deal. So why is this important to podcasters? Well, it's important on several planes, in my opinion. Number one, if you are trying to grow an audience for your podcast on social media, you're pitching them. You're pitching them yourself. And understanding how to pitch properly and how to frame sentences and frame conversation is important. Number one. Number two, are you trying to find advertisers or sponsors? Well, you're pitching them. Are you trying to pitch your show to a network? I mean, there's tons of use cases why this book can help you out. There is a link in the newsletter. It is featured on SitchRadio.com as the book of the month for September 2022. And I encourage you to pick it up and read it. Now, I would say do this after you read The Little Red Book of Selling. That book is going to set you up for success getting into Pitch Anything. And both books are in the Sitch Radio Podcasters Library. You can find a link to that on SitchRadio.com. And that brings us to the Fun Zone. If you're unfamiliar with the Fun Zone portion of the newsletter, Joey works really hard every month to put together an audio term crossword puzzle. And this month, puzzle is out, and the answer key for last month's puzzle is also available now. So what you can do is head on over to Substack and subscribe to the newsletter, and you can go back to all of our monthly newsletters for this year and find a crossword puzzle to take up some of your time, learn some new audio terms. It could be beneficial to you. And that wraps it up for today's episode of Sitch Radio. We greatly appreciate you checking us out, and we will see you next month. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Those links are in the show notes. We will chat with you soon.